This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Our Story, Stories That Unite Us. A show that celebrates the compelling stories we all have about those experiences, be they large or small, simple or complex, happy or sad, that shape our lives. Please join me, Richard-Yves Sitoski, as I welcome today's three storytellers. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging the territory of the people of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations, and the territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, comprised of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, who are the traditional caretakers of this land. Today, we are coming to you from the auditorium of the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. And now for our storytellers. Our first storyteller today is none other than Brittany Knight, who will be talking about the journey. Brittany has performed, directed, and taught with Canadian theatres, youth training programs, and children's television in Canada since 1995. She currently works for the Bluewater District School Board as a secondary teacher while raising two extraordinary sons with her husband, David. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Brittany Knight. Thank you.
I believe we can be fierce, calm, and kind. I believe that being fierce and kind are not exclusive of each other. And I believe that we can fight the good fight with compassionate hearts. And I believe this is one of the main ways that we've made progress. Hello, everyone. My birth name is Brittany Knight. My assumed name is Brittany Mossy, that I share with my husband, David. And it's been an interesting journey being born with a name like Knight. I've learned over the years that it doesn't mean that I need to fight other people's battles for them, and it doesn't mean I need to rescue anybody. But I am acutely aware of our complex human condition, and I want to do my part to alleviate the struggles. I also recognize I have a certain amount of privilege, and it's important to me to elevate other voices, especially because some of those voices are my own children's. They weren't born with the exact same privilege that I have. Both of my children have what society might call a disability, but I don't like to look at it that way. My one son is 15, and he has what you might consider to be an invisible disability. And my other son is 9, and he has a very visible disability because he uses a wheelchair. But I don't like to use a lot of those terms. I like to say that they have different abilities or they have atypical abilities because they have strengths and they can do things and they can process all kinds of things in the world in ways that I don't. And they've amazed me every day that I've been able to spend with them for the last 15 years. And this is part of the journey that I wanted to share with you today, because while we've had amazing triumphs and we work together as a family to uphold each other and celebrate our strengths, but we've also faced a lot of barriers. And I think there's a lot of barriers that people are aware of, and there's a lot that people are not aware of. When my younger son, the 9-year-old Charlie, was born, we weren't aware of any of the conditions that he was born with. He needed life-saving surgery, and he was rushed to sick kids almost as soon as he was born. He had bilateral club feet, he had hip dysplasia, he had a condition called arthrogryposis, which affects his joints and his muscles from his hips down, and that's why he uses a wheelchair. He also was born with a medical condition called jejunal atresia, and that required him to have emergency life-saving surgery. So right from the get-go, he was born a warrior. He was also 2 months premature. And 1 month before he was born, I found out that my older son, who is 5.5 years older than his brother, was diagnosed with a neurodiverse condition. So between the two of them, my world kind of exploded. And I was working full-time in Toronto back then as a teacher, and I had to take a significant amount of time off to support my sons. Ultimately, I ended up leaving my work because I needed to be there for both of my kids. They required a lot of services and supports, and it was really overwhelming to try to navigate all the different systems: healthcare, education, therapies, support services, and just even survive as a family. So on kind of a breakthrough epiphany moment, we ended up moving very impulsively to this area, to the Grey Bruce region. And a lot of that was because things were so chaotic, or they felt chaotic, they felt very stressful. And I personally needed some peace. So we moved to this beautiful area for some of the peace that it offers and the beauty. And it felt very healing just to be in Grey Bruce. We also moved here because I consciously wanted to be part of a community, and we struggled to find community in the big city, especially when you have kids with extra needs. There's a lot of ways they don't necessarily fit in to various settings, and I wanted to make sure that they could build lasting relationships in their lives. So once we came here, I wasn't aware that there would be all kinds of barriers we would face being in a rural setting. And some of those barriers were healthcare, and some were education, some were financial barriers, and some were local government barriers. I still advocate regularly in our community to build accessibility as a priority. And once we came here, I wasn't aware that being on the border, where we are in Thornbury, of the Grey region, we wouldn't be able to access services in the Simcoe County. So the Children's Treatment Network is in Collingwood, and it's a 20-minute drive for us, but we can't access services there. We have to access services in London, which is a 3-hour drive one way from where we live, and that's the Thames Valley Children's Centre. So there's a lot of barriers in terms of distance and amalgamations, because part of the reason this happened was because of healthcare amalgamations. And those decisions affect families and affect individuals like ours in a significant way. So there's lots of advocacy that I've had to take on, and it's important because there's a lot of families like ours. So in addition to struggling with some of the healthcare services, we also have been through various surgeries for my son, Charlie. He's been through 6 different significant surgeries in his 9 years. And even the last ones, which were in the spring, there was a significant amount of recovery there. And we had no at-home support. Technically, there should be community support. Technically, what used to be called the local health integrated network would provide physiotherapy and occupational therapy and speech language therapy. And for at least the last 2 years, all that's been provided is waitless. And I've been told that they're having trouble just recruiting or finding the staff. So that's been a challenge for us. In terms of my older son, the challenges for him have been in education because he's neurodivergent, and he often hasn't received the supports that would allow him to be successful. So what we've really had to do is really reach out to our community resources. We've had friends, we've had neighbors that have been there for us. We've had people anonymously drop off things at our door. It's meant the world to us. We also have looked to places that we're lucky to have in this region, like Hope Haven and a place called the Illuminated Learning Center, and other great community supports, the BVO, and There's others, there's a lot to list. And I'm grateful for that. And what I wanted to say today is that in addition to all these big barriers that we continue to work through resiliently, it's really the community that has meant so much to us. And I want you to know that everyone who's here today and everyone who's listening, everyone plays a role in supporting each other, even in terms of just interacting on the street. I think it's really important that we look at each other from a strength-based perspective. I think it's really important that we look at each other for our abilities, because even for the struggles my children have, they are phenomenally powerful. They have abilities that amaze me every day. And if we are able to ask the questions, even sometimes that might be uncomfortable, it's okay, because that's how we learn more about each other. That's how we can support each other. And I'm really grateful for all those ways that people have reached out to us and the ways that people have supported us for advocating. And today I'm really grateful for all of you listening to this journey. And I think together we can all be fierce and calm and kind, and we can all build a more inclusive place for everyone. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Brittany. Thank you. And our next storyteller is J.C. Coutts, who will be telling us about The Journey. J.C. is an award-winning radio and television host who lives in Port Elgin with his wife, Heather. When he's not talking on the radio or hosting an Owen Sound Attack game on Rogers TV, he can often be found volunteering as a minor hockey coach or occasionally appearing in a Roxy production. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome J.C. Coutts.
You have to leave in order to be able to come back. That's the words of encouragement given to me just before I was about to leave the only place I ever wanted to be. It was August 2004, and I had just been offered my first full-time job in radio. It was a morning show in Timmins, which, as I was about to learn, was not in southern Ontario like I originally thought. Whoops. I was 21. I was about to go into my second year of radio college in Ottawa. There were a lot of things going through my mind at the time about whether or not this was the right opportunity for me. It was an opportunity that was a long shot. Just 3 years earlier, nobody even knew what my voice sounded like. But somehow the quiet guy that sat at the back of class, never said a word to anybody, started doing hockey play-by-play on TV. And from there I was hooked. Whatever I thought I was going to do with the rest of my life, that was out the window. I had never wanted anything much more in my life. And nobody, not anybody, not especially me, should be able to walk into their hometown radio station, ask for a job, and get one on the same day. But it happened to me on February 17th, 2002. It was my last day of high school and my first day of radio. There's an expression in our business called paying your dues. Sometimes that means working the overnight shift, trying to get a little bit better at your on-air performance. That shift no longer existed, so I was going to have to take on as much work as I possibly could and probably do the jobs that nobody else wanted. Jobs like setting up a remote broadcast at a furniture store on a Saturday morning so the talent could come in, do the show, and go home. Part of that meant I had to blow up balloons for 2 hours. There is nothing more anxiety-inducing than having an unsecured helium tank in a public place. You just never know. Is someone going to knock it over? Is it going to become a torpedo? It kind of led to me developing a fear of balloons. By the way, it's called globophobia, if you're wondering. There were some fun jobs, though. Jobs like producing Blue Jays broadcasts. I basically got paid to sit with my feet up on the desk and listen to the ball game. The Western road trips, they weren't so much fun. Those games would start at 10 o'clock at night, so I was up to 1 or 2 a.m. Then I would sleep on the floor of the studio, get up at 6 a.m., produce a whole other show, and then when that was done, it was time for the afternoon game. I pretty much lived at the radio station and never really met anything that I didn't want to do, which was part of the reason why this opportunity in Timmins was now standing in front of me. I had it all planned out, at least I thought I did. 8 months, maybe a year, then back to Ottawa. That turned into 3 years, thanks to a little bump in the road. There's a joke in our business that you haven't really made it until you've been fired. Got that one out of the way early. I was starting to think that I might never get out of Northern Ontario, but then opportunity came as a phone call from Peterborough. Opportunity to do an afternoon show, which meant no more getting up at 3 a.m. Already a win for me right there. And it also meant I get to pick and schedule the music for the station. That's an important job. Maybe someday could lead to management, which maybe then back to Ottawa? Not so fast. I love Peterborough, but I was about to be introduced to another of radio's unique experiences, getting laid off. See, the company I worked for got bought by a bigger company. Got to get the stock price to a certain point. Shareholders, you know how it goes. But luckily, anytime I ever got knocked down, I was able to dust myself off pretty quickly and land at a new radio station. This next one was in a place I did not even know existed, Wingham. I wasn't really sure what to think when I drove into town as a horse-drawn buggy was driving out. I know that that's common for Grey, Bruce, Huron, Perth, but for a kid from the Ottawa Valley, I thought I time traveled. I did not think I was going to be in swingin' Wingham for a long time, but then 2 things happened. Number 1, I got promoted to program director. I was the boss. I was in charge of the station. At 27, I was one of the youngest in Canada. Number 2, I met a girl. And this was going to be tough, because she was planning to go to Kitchener to continue her education, and I just got a call from Yellowknife. So off we went. She was still going to go to school, but at the end of 2011, we drove west. Would our 9-month-long relationship survive the 4-day drive through Western Canada? Would my Toyota Corolla make it towing a U-Haul? The good news is everything worked out. And by July of 2012, when I married that girl, I had already transferred to Alberta, and we were ready to start our new life there. For me, at this point, any career, life goals I thought I had, now looked a lot different than they did just 8 years earlier. I suppose if you ever get lucky enough to do anything for more than 20 years, eventually either you change or what you do changes. And I have tried on a few occasions to change what I do, but I always come back to this. And it's not for fame or fortune. Those were never guaranteed in this business. It's to be part of a community. It's to meet people, hear their stories, share their stories. I honestly can't think of any other job where I could have lived across Canada, got to live in amazing places, talk to people, and tell their stories. This is the only one. You have to leave in order to come back. You know, I never made it back there, but I made it back here. There's a quote from Conan O'Brien. It's always stuck with me. Nobody in life ever gets exactly what they thought they were going to get. But if you work really hard and you're kind, amazing things will happen. It inspired the way I end my radio show every day, and it's how I'll leave you today. Have fun, be safe, remember to be kind. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.
Well, thank you, JC, for that wonderful story. And now, our third storyteller for today is none other than our very own producer, Mary Jane Murray, someone who's no stranger to telling stories on stage. So I'd like you to please welcome Mary Jane Murray.
You're doing such a great job. I love this. This is so much fun. Well, surprise, surprise, I'm here. When we chose the topics of the journey, beating the odds, and the goof up, the big goof up, somehow that collapsed all into one story for me. It's only 5 miles. Well, 10 miles if you count it by a round trip. I grew up with the imperial system. That is inches, feet, yards, and miles. It's the only way I knew how to judge distance. Heck, it's 1970. And it's 3:30, and I hear the dismissal bell for the school, and the kids all come tumbling out, and they're happy to be on their way home. So I dash to my home, and I put on my Hudson Bay parka, my mucklucks, my wool hat, my deerskin mitts, and I hop on my skidoo, and I turn it on, thank you, and it fires up, and I hook up the sled, and I gently edge my way down the snowy riverbank onto the ice. And there are 6 children waiting for me to take them home. It's only 5 miles across the frozen waters of the English River system. Everyone piles in, we're on our way, and I look at the skies and I think, it's getting a little darker than usual for 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it seems to be getting a little colder. But off we go, and just as we pass the bay, kids are kids, and they're having fun back in the sled, and they tip it over. And I stop the skidoo, and I get off, and I look, and my heart sinks, because right there is a pocket, an air pocket of open water. So now I have to watch for the open water. Okay, gang, let's just get home safely tonight. And off we go, and I deposit each of the children at their respective homes along the river edge. And then the last 2 children are the furthest away. And by the time we get to their home, it's really getting a little darker, a little colder. And Tom comes out and he greets us and he says, I don't think you should go back. It's dangerous. So they invite me in, and his wife Sarah makes me some tea, and he says, I want you to stay the night with us. And I thank him very much for his kindness because I appreciate it. I just really wanted to go home. So he takes off my mucklucks and he stuffs them with newspaper so that my feet won't freeze. And now it's really dark, and I'm back on my skidoo. And all I have is this single beam of light on the ice. Now, my skidoo is one of the originals. It's that yellow bumblebee one with the black stripe on it and the very shallow windscreen and the solitary beam of light. And off I go. Now, it's really dark. I can't landmark by the shoreline because I can't discern where it is. And I have to watch for the open air pockets, so I can't get too close to the shore. There's not enough snow, deep snow on the ice to find my tracks. So I'm out there in the dark, black, freezing cold. And what am I doing out here? I have no business being out here. It's dangerous. I'm a city girl. I grew up with streetcars and subways and buses, and I have no survival skills. But I keep going forward, watching this beam of light, just focus, and then the panic sets in. And the panic is almost worse than the cold because my body's already freezing, but now my heart is starting to freeze too with the panic. If I'm going to get home safely, I have to coach myself. And at my young age, for some reason I knew to do that. It's okay. Keep going forward. As long as you're going south, you're going to hit land eventually. Keep going. You can do this. You will be safe. And then over here, I see a twinkle. My face is frozen, my eyelashes, but there's like, is that a twinkle? Is that a light I see over there? And, okay, I'm afraid to take my eyes from the beam of light in front of me, but I lift up and I look at, and the dark clouds have eased back and exposed this dark black sky filled with amazing stars, and the awe and the wonder of nature. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. Focus on that beam of light. Don't be distracted. Keep going. Charge forward. Okay, I'm really cold. And then over here I see, is that a glow? Like, you think you're imagining things, but is that a glow of light I see over there? And I know the community is over to the left, so I steer my skidoo over that way. And as I get closer, I see that it is the lights of the community. And this huge relief. So I speed up. I know I'm okay. I'm past the bay. I won't find more water, open water pockets. And I bump up the riverbank and I park the skidoo and I'm frozen to the handlebars. But eventually ease off, but my knees are frozen and my feet are frozen, so I hobble to the back door and I have to like use my arms on the doorknob to get in. And then I army crawl all the way down to my bedroom and I just kind of ease onto my bed and I lay there like a dead bug for about an hour. Then I have enough dexterity to actually unzip my Hudson Bay parka and take off my mucklucks and my hat and my deerskin mitts. And then fully clothed, I just slip under the covers and I lay there and thank God I'm safe. And I promptly fall asleep. And then I'm awoken with my alarm clock and this beam of sunlight coming in my window, and it's a new day. Now, when you teach the primary grades, the day goes by in a heartbeat. And so it's 3:30 again, and I dash from the school over to the house. Okay, I put on extra warm clothes this time. My mucklucks, my Hudson Bay parka, and my wool hat, my deerskin mitts. I hop on the skidoo, I turn it on, and I hook up the sled and I bump down to the ice. And there are 6 children happily waiting for me to take them home. It's only 5 miles across the frozen waters of the English River system. 10 miles round trip. Piece of cake. I hope that was okay.
That was great. That was great. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Our Story, Stories That Unite Us. And I'd invite you all to join me next time as we welcome our next 3 storytellers. Until then, what's your story?
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Are you the type who would keep going or stop? It's not easy to stop when you have an addiction. Legalizing cannabis won't stop addiction. It trivializes its consumption. Let's be vigilant. If you need help, visit portage.ca.
Come on in, take a seat. Or better yet,
Look at this crowd on its feet.
for aggressive D and knockdown threes, athleticism and speed, for Spicy P.
Spicy, feeling it on the big stage.
Yes, this season,